Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Pebble Inspector Podcast. My name is James Gray. I am Pebble Inspector in Chief. This is a weekly digest of my week in writing, what I've managed to write, what I haven't written, how I feel about what I've written, where I think it's going, and the influences behind it, what I've been reading this week to get me where I'm going. This is all part, at the moment anyway, the writing I'm doing is part of my dissertation for my master's degree in creative writing and literature studies at Lancaster University, which I am nearing the end of. It's July now, and the dissertation is due in September, which feels, or used to feel, a long time away, but now it doesn't. In the last couple of episodes, I've been going over the work I've done so far for the dissertation. The dissertation is made up of 3 pieces, and this is the third piece. It's the one I submitted first to my supervisor. He just needed an example of some work, and this was something I already had written. I actually originally wrote a version of it for the personal essay module that I did in the first term, and I didn't have much time because I think I was still working on some assignments for the second term, so I didn't have much time to write anything new. So I thought, well, I'll just fire over these few hundred words that I've got, and so they just ended up becoming lodged as part of the dissertation. But I like them, so it's good. The previous 2 episodes, if you've not listened, we have Princess Diana as a giant inflatable balloon, and we've got an A to Z of my life growing up in the 90s and a sperm trying to chat up an egg and various other delights. So if you want, you can go back and listen to those or listen to them after this. I don't really mind. I don't think it'll spoil anything. This is also the one that's got the most work needed, as in just pure words on a page. The word count is low. I've only got about 700 words, not even that, probably 650 words actually down on the page. So there's a fair bit to go. I imagine this is going to be 2,000 or 3,000 words by the end of it somehow. So I've just got to keep plugging away at it. It deals with a time in my life that I don't actually remember. When I was born and through till about 2 years old, we lived on a farm on the Lancashire-Yorkshire border, high up on the moors, and the farm, and it's always capitalised, the farm, in our shared history as a family. It was a time in the very early 90s, or late 80s, early 90s, that I don't remember because I was too young, and so all I have are the stories I've been told about it. And so I'm interested in this idea of a personal history that we can't remember, and how we form that history and those stories about ourselves through others, or how others form those histories for us. We shared the farm with another family who had kids as well, similar age. Again, I don't really remember anything about them, but for some reason we stopped and both families moved apart and the farm was sold. And I don't know why, and I'm interested to explore why that might have been, and perhaps use that blank space as a space for some creativity and some exploration of this idea of incomplete histories. It was always winter in this piece anyway, but also just, again, not in my memory, but a lot of the stories. The reason winter is important is because this piece started as a response to a prompt that we had in the personal essay module to write about a particular subject of art that we could pick from, and I picked January, and I picked it probably because I was born in January, and therefore I felt like there was mileage, and being born in January on a farm meant that by the time it came to February, I was only a month old, and it was lambing season, February and March, so it felt like there was a nice symmetry of childbirth and lamb birth, and a good opportunity for a bit of gore and animal death and general darkness. So it's a wintry story, even though I was there for 2 years, so obviously went through a couple of summers. I feel like for this piece, it should always be in winter. Originally, so for the writing, the response to the writing prompt, I had the majority of this piece was just pretty much one paragraph. And then I wrote another piece also in that same theme. I think the writing prompt was something like, write one piece of prose, a lyrical piece, write a memoir piece, write a creative, critical piece, a responsive piece, and to the same word or the same theme. And so I'd chosen January. The biographical piece was what became the guts of this story, and then the lyrical piece, I wrote a short poem. And then when I came to trying to put an example of my writing together to give to my station supervisor, I combined the lyrical and the biographical prose piece together, and my idea was to alternate between lyric or poetry and more straight prose. And that's what I submitted. And one of the first things that we discussed was, why this choice, and does it actually add anything to the piece other than funky line breaks and, trying to be kind of different? And it didn't. So it's been moulded and reformed a little bit to bring those lyrical pieces more into the body of the text and less separate feeling. It's, I guess, again, I'm trying to build a picture or a vignette of a moment in time, and through that moment in time explore a couple of different themes. As I've said, it's this idea of histories we don't remember. I'm interested in idealism and the failure of idealism as represented by us moving away from the farm, and also the idea of creativity filling in where there are blanks. As usual, I will do a reading, which won't take long because it's, like I say, only 600 words. I've written some notes of where I think it's going to go, so we'll discuss those, and then I'll be able to also talk about some of the work that I've been reading that has informed this piece, or that I think is perhaps a useful reference point for the piece. Okay, let's get into the reading. Black Lane ends. To frost and touch the scratching grey above scrawled trees, banking high, cloud scoured and flat, shadowless dawn breaks at a sociable hour, black-grey sludge of last year's leaves, ground beneath reluctant tire, low sun finds the bits you've missed. I was born in January. We lived on a small holding, though we always referred to it as the farm at the time. Each winter we were cut off from the main road by snow and kept 2 large freezers stocked for winter drifts. We kept goats and turkeys for cash with a small flock of heritage breed sheep, an act of role play. We left before I was 2. As they stitched and sutured my mother, post-birth, post-me, they asked, "Are you doing anything for Burns night?" Tonight? Probably just this. Born in January meant lambs soon followed. I wasn't born in a barn, but I spent those early months swaddled in hay, nestled in bales whilst my parents lambed, pulling still or wriggling sacks from screaming ewes. They were self-taught, my parents, not the lambs. Book-learned. One lamb arrived blue and unmoving. Fluid filled its lungs. Remembering a downturned page in one of their husbandry books, my dad took the lamb by its elastic hind legs and made to swing it around his head. The centrifugal force was meant to eject the fluid from the airways. He completed a quarter of a circle, an arc, before braining the lamb against a low beam he'd forgotten. The lamb was killed instantly, its oxygen-deprived brain opened to the air at last and staining the roof truss. This is one of the few stories rolled out whenever the farm comes up in recollection. Ziggy the pet goat, butchered and parcelled when my sister was 5. The rows of turkeys hung from the low beams of the kitchen, each row a different stage towards the Christmas bounty, bled, plucked, trimmed. The enormous unkillable turkey, bloated on the wrong feed mix, left to live on that high moorland sketch of stone and grass. The origins of my and my sister's lifelong vegetarianism. We shared the farm with another family. I don't remember anything of them, except an account of a minor car crash, icy roads and a crumpled bonnet. We never discussed what happened to make the family split, why we left the wide-open moor for a close-packed terrace in the mill-haunted valley below. Cobbled and suttered, a cliché in all but itself. how we sold the animals off cheaper than the agreed market price, the way ideas and idealists don't last when opened to the cold, bright air. We had a 1960s Land Rover, complete with manual windscreen wipers and a rusted hole in the floor. My mother had to wear wellies beneath her scrubs to fit her feet onto the pedals. A district nurse with used blood beneath her nails. A hair caught beneath the wheels on the way to work. Bagged and thrown in the community daycare centre freezer by my father. The horrified food hygiene inspector pulling the forgotten body, blood-filled bag around its head and all, from the freezer 6 months later. So that's all I've got so far, pretty short. There's a lot of fleshing out to be done. I kind of see each paragraph, each section as a scab to be picked at and see how much it bleeds. That's a bit far, isn't it? I see it as a little area to be investigated and talk about it a little bit more. I've got a few notes here as well. I've already mentioned the idea of a different way of living and idealism, families tied together, and why I didn't know anything about it. Was there a falling out? Would a family unit have survived a schism better than the artificially combined family? These constructs that we make. It's an interesting one. It's almost a bit speculative. There's a sensitivity as well around the fact that these people are still around, or some of them are. I've got to take that into consideration, but it could be interesting to think about why and how something has happened that I don't know anything about. I'm interested in the ewe and lamb relationship, obviously with it linking to motherhood and childhood and just using those parallels. I think it's quite nice, especially with the setting being in kind of mid to late winter. There's a story about there being again, the photograph's probably lost now because we lost a load of stuff in a flood, but my mum did. There was a photograph of my sister at about 6 years old playing with a wooden playset and showing it to a very young me, maybe like 6 months, a year old. And it's a lovely moment of sibling unity and play and calm. But in the background of the picture, there's the Jack Russell that they had on the farm with a big rat in its mouth that it's just caught in the woodshed where we're playing. And I like that juxtaposition of idealism and the brutality or even absurdism of the life on the farm. The Jack Russell was, again, I don't remember any of this is all second-hand stories. The Jack Russell disappeared one day and it'd gone down a rabbit hole and got stuck and died, which happens a lot and it's just a really grim thing to think about. Going back to the notes that I read. The power of histories you can't remember. You belong to them, but you have no agency within the story. So as I say, what is there to be explored there? What were we talking about? This idea of no agency within your own story and how we can respond to that or maybe regain some agency through how we tell it. Animal death, pretty obvious. It happens a lot on farms. Got the lamb there. My sister there was a guy who came to kill the moles, and to know how much to charge him, he would hang the moles on the barbed wire fence by their tails, and you'd count them, and that's how much you pay, however much you paid per mole. And a couple of times my mum would see my sister playing, and think, wasn't that lovely? And then upon closer inspection, she's playing with a dead mole. One time she brought one into the kitchen and gave it a bath in the kitchen sink. I don't know, probably no symbolism in that, but it's nice and grim. We had goats. I used to eat goat shit. Used to get in there with the goats, give them my bottle, eat their shit, and try to escape the farm in general. So there's a series of photographs of me crawling down the driveway, over fences. And the funny thing about the sequence of images is that it's obvious that my parents decided to not stop me, just let me do it and take photos. I doubt that'll get in there, but anyway. I've got the word amateurism here. I guess that comes back to the idea of idealism and playing at it, playing at being a family, playing at having a farm. And then again, in my notes, I've just got lyric essay. So I guess that's what I'm aiming for, is I want it to have the hallmarks of a lyrical piece. Perhaps starting off with, even though the poem's been absorbed into the piece, starting it from a piece of poetry is hopefully a good kick-off. As I say, it's always set in winter, and I was having a look around, looking in the archives, and I've got here a little copied out piece. The winter of 1990 to 91 was a particularly cold winter in Western Europe, noted especially for its effect on the United Kingdom, and for two significantly heavy falls of snow which occurred in December 1990 and February 1991. Sandwiched in between was a period of high winds and heavy rain, which caused widespread damage. And so I'd love to bring this bad weather element in, the idea of being stuck, isolated, or trapped on this farm, deep snowfalls, I think could be quite a nice image. So yeah, severe weather, isolation. And then I refer to it or mention it in the lamb death scene about animal husbandry manuals, and I wondered about using excerpts from those kind of books and perhaps a kind of almost like collage visual element. I think excerpts could be interesting. But again, as with any of these things, as long as it adds something to it, but I think it could do. I need to start looking, maybe go to the library. So when I submitted this piece to my supervisor, he, again, hopefully he's not just being polite, he seemed to like it, but again felt obviously it was not quite there yet. I still had lots of work to be done on it and added to it. So you reckoned kind of 8 to 16, which is quite a broad range, 8 to 16 more of these little vignettes as above, and particularly liked the giant turkey. And it was him who suggested it became a kind of godlike figure alone on the moor. We moved away, and the turkey lived on up there. And I think I could probably have a lot of fun with that. In the same way with the piece I talked about in the second episode, where we have Diana and the inflatable balloon skeleton. I feel like the giant turkey could be a nice focal point for the piece and to give it something physical to hang on. I think with this one I still need to throw more shit to see what sticks, and then I can start tidying it up. I don't feel like there's any point tidying at the moment until I just get a bit more volume on the page. So we'll see where it goes with that. I've got more memories of the farm. Or, well, again, they're not my memories, but there's more things about the farm that I could cover. Yeah, hopefully create a portrait of life on that kind of farm, in that kind of situation, in that wintry light. It's difficult when you've just got so few words down on the page to see it ever expanding out, but I'm going to go back to my Pebble Inspector instincts of just having a think about stuff, and just turning it over and just writing whatever comes to mind and filling the pages that way, and then you can come back through and see what you like and see what you don't like. We'll see. I wrote this, as I say, or the first version of this a long time ago, probably November of last year, July now. Feels a long time ago, and didn't give it much thought afterwards. Whilst I have picked it up again to faff around with and submit for the consideration for the dissertation, I haven't really put my mind in my mind palace. I've not gone back to these memories for a little while. So I feel like I need to sit with them and just, again, see what comes out. But it's a tricky one because they're not my direct memories. And I could ask my sister, who might remember some stuff, and I could ask my dad. But I feel like actually the importance from this piece comes from not knowing. And I feel like if I did know, it would almost spoil the magic, or it would take the barb out of the hook of the piece and neutralize it a bit. So I want to really explore that next. I've got the kind of factual elements down, but I want to explore the other ones, and that's where the giant unkillable turkey comes in, and we'll see. In terms of books that I read in the run-up to this or around this, for the personal essay module, we had lots of recommended reading, but one of the writers that I really enjoyed and hung on to even after the course had finished, because I felt like what they were doing was not only just good writing and important writing, but it also felt fairly close to what I was trying to achieve, which was Constellations by Sinéad Gleeson, which is a collection of essays. She writes a lot about her health or chronic health issues that she's got, about growing up in 1980s Ireland and growing up in a religious household, And she does it all in this very deft, indirect way that when we were talking about the book in the seminars, I described as it feels like she's playing a trick on us, because she somehow manages to get the story to progress to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing without you ever noticing. It's like a chameleon shifting colours where you suddenly realise it's turned from blue to red, but at no point in that transition could you have said with any certainty that's what was happening or what colour it was going from to. It just felt like a very natural and organic and slightly magical way of writing, that this led to this, led to this, led to this, but you don't notice that. You flow through it in the same way you flow through life. In the same way, a lot of the stuff that happens to us, we would never notice it happening at the time. We only notice once we're several months down the line and we have that ability to stand back. So I'd say Sinéad Gleeson was pretty instrumental. It's a really good collection of essays. Yeah, I've got a lot of these notes. I'm not sure how many of these are going to make it through. I think the idea of severe weather and winter is really important. I think the idea of isolation comes with that. What I really need to develop is this family dynamic and the breakdown of it, because I feel like, because I don't know anything about it, it's got to be sort of almost purely fictional. That's going to take me longer. And the title might change, but that's always the case, isn't it? The difficulty that I think I keep coming up against with all my pieces, not just this one, is figuring out what's worth talking about and what's not, and looking for the strands or the coincidences or the threads that it makes sense to pull on, rather than just lingering on something like the lamb hitting the beam, rather than just lingering on something because it's an interesting image, unless it's serving some purpose towards the final goal of the piece. It has to earn its place. I think I've said with all of the pieces so far, I'm always looking for their progression, as in where the story starts and where it finishes, and has there been some movement, has there been some action. And at the moment we've kind of got an image of us living on the farm, and then again a few sort of almost vignettes, but nothing really happens, which is I think where maybe the giant turkey might come in, because it will give us a story to write. It's got nice symbolism to it, but it's got a nice story that we can follow and develop, which I think is useful. So, nice short episode, I think, this week. Well, I say this week. I've recorded all these 3 episodes. The first 3 episodes are recorded within short succession because I want to get a little backlog of episodes so that my self-enforced restriction of posting every Friday, which is what I'm trying to do, put it in your diary, is a little bit more manageable, and I can keep ahead of it by just recording whether I can. I didn't plan on recording this today. I was trying to do some writing, but it just hasn't really been coming. I've been fiddling around the edges with my Princess Diana as a skeleton story, and there was no real major insight or breakthrough, so I thought I'd move on and do something different, which is what I'm doing now. I think I'm happy with the way this is going. I need to think a little bit more about how I can get 8 to 16 more of these sections out of it. I feel like there probably is enough stories, and I've also got this giant turkey to write into it, which I think should break it up quite nicely. Whether I introduce it earlier on, I'm not sure. Yeah, this is a very early draft, and so it's hard to know where it's going, which hopefully isn't too infuriating for you, the listener, that I'm just mumbling to myself about something that I don't even know where it's going. Rest assured, it will become something. Okay, I think we'll leave this one here. I think this is going to be a shorter episode, but that's just because I've not written much. I'll be returning to this piece. It's got a lot more body to be added, and I'll revisit it, and I can read you some more of what I've got. I'll be interested to see where I go with it, because I don't know yet either. Any other nuggets of wisdom? I have fairly recently got some noise cancelling headphones, which are an absolute revelation. They're the over-ear ones, Bose, Comfort something or other, and they're an absolute game changer for when I need to block everything out to write. I find it difficult. I can't really write to music if it's got any kind of beat, or certainly if it has lyrics, I would struggle. So I've been listening to a lot of instrumental music, and somebody that I definitely have been listening to a lot more is, I get the pronunciation wrong, Ryuichi Sakamoto. I think just Sakamoto will do. And in particular, the soundtrack to the film The Revenant, which is this kind of soaring instrumental score, but it works really well for focusing my mind. So there's a recommendation for you to try listen to Sakamoto when writing and see if it helps. I don't have many tips because I'm just finding out for myself, I guess. So next week I will do a bit of a change in format. Rather than reviewing work that I've been doing, I'm going to record a bit of a reading list of things that I've been reading during this dissertation, or as part of this dissertation, but also during the rest of my course and just over the last few months, and a bit of a blow-by-blow of what's been influential, what I've found useful or not useful, I suppose. Each episode so far, I've tried to talk about a few titles, or one title that I think has been instrumental, but I want to broaden that out into some of the other stuff that I've been reading. Hopefully be of interest to some of you. But for now, I shall say best of luck with all your future endeavours. Godspeed, and bye.